So the first thing we are going to talk about is memory. But before we get into how you can improve your memory, let's take a look at some popular myths about human memory. Understanding and busting these myths is important as it will save you valuable time when working on your brain training. It is especially important if you are someone who holds one or more of these myths. You may stop trying quickly if you think that you're forever stuck with a bad memory, but that's not the case. Your memory can definitely be improved. Myths are only going to harm you and your determination. So let's take common ones before we start. And if you will hold one of these, do not be surprised. There is a secret to a good memory. So many people out there think that there is a secret to improving one's memory, and they want to know that secret. But here's the deal. There is no secret. There is no one single way to improve your memory. There are a lot of methods and tools that you can use to improve your memory. Each one works differently and improves a different part of your memory. But you cannot possibly imagine improving your memory by using just one. To build a house, you need a hammer, a saw, a screwdriver, and a whole lot of other tools, don't you? It's the same when it comes to memory improvements. You have to realize that there is no quick fix or easy way to do this. It requires practice and patience. In fact, the memory skills are not even secrets. Most of the methods have been around for more than 300 years. For example, mnemonics has been around for 2000 years. No one has the right to say they invented a particular memory skill or that the method is a secret. Memory is the thing. Nope, it's not. There is no physical part of your brain that's called memory. Memory is far from a thing, it's actually a process. Remembering things is an activity and you should not think of it in terms of bad or good memory. Remembering something requires you to think about a lot of things, and it may actually be a sum total of different memories. You may have to think about the smell, the sound, and the look of what you're trying to remember at once. Even if two memories are virtually the same, they may be remembered differently. Many times it's not even a question of complexity. You may remember a whole conversation in detail, but not a simple melody, just because they are stored differently in your memory. So no, memory is definitely not a thing. Some people will always have a bad memory. As we have already established, your memory is not a thing. Memory is not even about ability. So trust me when I tell you that nobody's forever stuck with a bad memory unless they have a health issue. Some people naturally have a great memory, while others tend to struggle. But that in no way implies that they have to continue to do so for the rest of their lives. The memory skills that one picks up are much more important than any natural difference in memory. Say you have two boxes, one large and one small, and you put index cards into them. The difference is that in the small box, you put cards in a neat, alphabetical order, whereas in the large box, you just throw them in haphazardly. If you're asked to find a particular box in both the boxes, in which case do you think you'll find the said card faster? The smaller one, obviously. It's the same with memory. One person may have a bigger box, but if the information is not organized and good memory skills are not used, they will not necessarily have an easy time remembering things. So do not even for a second believe that you're forever stuck with a bad memory. It will only stop you from trying, which is the worst thing you can do. You can always improve your memory. There are easy ways to memorize. This is another myth believed by people who think there is a secret to memorization. There is no trick, as some people believe, and good memory requires mental effort on your part. It's a learned skill, more often than not, and there is no easy way to do it. There are memory methods and techniques that you can learn which make the process easier for you, but you still have to put in the effort. Improving your memory is like learning any other thing, like playing a guitar or driving. You will not expect to learn it in a day or two. So why such high expectations when improving your memory? You have to learn the right techniques and know where to use which ones. That is the only way you will have a great memory. You are too old to improve your memory. Some people often complain that they are too old to improve their memory. They think that just because they are getting old, they cannot learn some memory skills to stay sharp. It's just a move that needs to be shunned. Your memory can be improved at any age. Yes, some level of brain functions impediment is to be expected at really old ages, but that does not mean you cannot use memory skills. Even a 70-year-old person who makes good use of memory skills can outperform a 20-year-old who doesn't. Myth: we never forget. Some accelerated learning programs claim that we never forget what we learn. Knowledge simply gets misplaced, and the key to good memory is to figure out how to dig it out. Facts: all knowledge is subject to gradual decay. Even your own name is vulnerable. It is only a matter of probability. Strong memories are very unlikely to be forgotten. The probability of forgetting one's name is like the probability of getting hit by an asteroid. Possible, but not considered on a daily basis. Long sleep is good for memory. Association of sleep and learning made many believe that the longer we sleep, the healthier we are. In addition, long sleep improves memory consolidation. All we need for effective learning is well-structured sleep at the right time and of the optimum length. Many individuals sleep less than 5 hours and wake up refreshed. Many geniuses sleep little and practice cat naps. Long sleep may correlate with disease. This is why mortality studies show that those who sleep 7 hours live longer than 9-hour sleepers. The best formula for good sleep: listen to your body. Go to sleep when you're sleepy and sleep as long as you need. When you catch a good rhythm without an alarm clock, your sleep may ultimately last less, but produce far better results in learning. It is the natural healthy structure of sleep cycles that makes for good learning. It is not true that if your sleep is short, so is your memory. Superbrain versus baseline brain. In this lesson, I'll show you the whole difference between the baseline brain and what we are calling superbrain. The difference is immense. Superbrain means using your brain to maximum advantage. Now let's look at it. Baseline brain says, I have numerous habits, I'm a creature of habits. And the superbrain says, I pay attention not to fall into bad habits, and if I have one, I can break it easily. I do not stimulate my mind with new things very often. I like to improvise. I love familiarity, it's the most comfortable way to live. I abhor boredom, which to me means repetition. If I'm being honest, there is boring repetition at home, work, and in my relationships. I gravitate to new things in many areas of my life. I cannot really say that I'm growing as much as when I was younger. I will keep evolving till the end of my life. If I learn a new skill, I take it only so far. If I learn a new skill, I take it as far as I can. I am resistant to change and sometimes feel threatened by it. I adapt quickly to change. I do not reach beyond what I am already good at. If I'm not good at something when I first try it, that's okay. I'm wedded to my beliefs and opinions. I've recently changed a long-held belief or opinion. I leave it to others to be the experts. There is at least one thing I'm an expert on. I rarely watch educational television or attend public lectures. I gravitate toward educational outlets on television or in local colleges. It's been a while since I felt really inspired. I'm inspired by my life on a day-to-day basis. I have felt out of control recently in at least one area of my life. I feel comfortable in control. My stress level is too high, but I put up with it. I actively avoid stressful situations by walking away and letting go. I worry about depression or am depressed. My mood is consistently good. My life can go in a direction I do not want it to. Despite unexpected events, my life is headed in the direction I want it to go. My thoughts can be obsessive, scary, or anxious. I like the way my mind thinks. Even though your brain doesn't come with an owner's manual, you can use it to follow a path of growth, achievement, personal satisfaction, and new skills. Without realizing it, you're capable of making a quantum leap in how you use your brain. The human brain is one of the nature's most complex biological creations. People tap the power of their brains daily to perform manual tasks, to math equations, to access memory of past experiences, and process feelings about current events. Your brain contains roughly 100 billion nerve cells, forming anywhere from a trillion to perhaps even a quadrillion connections, called synapses. These connections are in a constant, dynamic state of remodeling in response to the world around you. As a marvel of nature, this one is minuscule and yet stupendous. Your brain not only interprets the world, it creates it. Everything you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell would have none of those qualities without the brain. Imagine if we could truly unlock the full capacity of those billions of neurons and move beyond the brain's baseline activity. This course shows you that there is a way. By increasing self-awareness and focusing the brain on tasks of self-improvement, you can push your brain beyond what you think is possible. Give your brain focused attention. The mind and the body are not separate. In fact, the human brain is deeply connected to each and every cell in the human body. Tibetan monks practice a harmonious balance between mind and body. Through intense focus, monks can control which messages the brain sends to the body. When the temperature dips below freezing, a monk can meditate and encourage his brain to send his body messages that will raise his body temperature to a comfortable level. This kind of mind control has also been tapped to fight diseases, once considered chronic and incurable. When a person has a stroke, the trauma can sever neural pathways used to send messages from the brain to parts of the body, which can result in partial paralysis. While medical professionals once thought such paralysis was incurable, now therapists can help stroke victims train the brain by sending repetitive messages to affected areas of the body. As part of the therapy, a patient focuses on simple tasks, such as lifting a cup or writing down a word, and over time, the neural pathways will repair themselves and regular movement can be restored. This example shows us how resilient and powerful the brain can be when we give it focused attention. Do we lose neurons as we age? People can generate brain neurons through intellectual challenges and physical exercise. Sometimes people talk about activities in terms of how many brain cells a challenging task will cost, as if humans have a limited supply of brain cells. It is true that the human brain contains a lot of neurons. What's more, the brain can even generate more neurons if needed. The human brain daily loses the use of some 85,000 neurons on average. But really, this total is a drop in the ocean. There are 40 billion available neurons in the cerebral cortex alone. If we factor in the neurons we lose daily, at this rate, a human could live for hundreds of years and still have plenty of neurons left to live a life as a brilliant, talented mathematician. Amazing that the human brain is creating new brain cells all the time. At the University of Rochester, neurologist Paul Coleman made a fascinating discovery. He found that the brain of a 20-year-old person and the brain of a 70-year-old person basically have the same amount of neurons. This is because of our body's ability to regenerate cells. The human brain is always growing and evolving. It does this when it is given a mental challenge, such as learning a new language or working out a math problem. Interestingly, the same effect has been observed in birds. When researchers studied the zebrafinch, They found that a bird's brain grew remarkably during mating season, as birds were learning new songs to attract mates. In the next lesson, we will take a closer look at the things you can do to increase your brain's power. You have to be open-minded to improve yourself. To grow and improve your brain's power, be open to new experiences and the world around you. Who doesn't want a superbrain or to become the next Steve Jobs? If you're interested in growing your brain, however, you should look at different role models. Babies are experts at learning and developing their brains. They can teach us a lot about increasing our brain power. The first step to growing your brain is to be open to the world and the possibilities it offers for learning and growing. Most people go about their day closed off from the outside world. They keep their heads down, uninterested in deviating from the safety of a daily routine. Shutting down your powers of observation and curiosity keeps your brain from growing. To stimulate your superbrain, stay open to new sights and observe nature or the environment where you live. Talk to new people and pay attention to new sounds and smells. Do not be afraid to deviate from what's normal. Try new dishes, taste new things. Reading is also important, yet many people are put off by newspapers since they are often filled with stories that are sad or overwhelming. This attitude shuts out new information, and with no new information, your brain starves. So do not be afraid to absorb all the news you can. Such information is a valuable resource in finding out more about your world. What is happening out there and how people in other countries live. While you're exploring the world through news, it's also important to remain open-minded when experiencing the opinions of other people. A developing brain should not be prejudiced or hold preconceived notions about what is right or wrong. Do not dismiss someone's opinion if that opinion doesn't align with your thoughts on politics, religion, or otherwise. Instead, use discussions as an opportunity to become more informed about all sides of an issue. Tap your brain's feedback loop and your emotions to find ways to eat less and live healthier. There is no end to the benefits of a super brain. When you focus on developing your brain, you will not only improve your intellect, but also curb any damaging behaviors, such as overeating. We all know how hard it is to stick to a diet, and there is even scientific research that supports dieters' experiences of the difficulties in shedding unwanted pounds. Scientists in Australia have discovered a hunger hormone called ghrelin. This hormone kicks into overdrive when you lose weight, making you feel desperately hungry. So if you're lucky enough to get rid of your love handles, ghrelin puts your body on red alert, and before you know it, you have put the weight back on. In this particular instance, your body's mechanisms are working against you. More often than not, we overeat for emotional reasons, such as when we are overtired, stressed, lonely, or anxious. Consuming sweet foods or other high-calorie snacks can help us soothe unwanted feelings. The first step to dieting successfully is to recognize the difference between emotional eating and real hunger. Once you are conscious of why you want to eat, you can provide your brain with the appropriate feedback. By giving your brain conscious feedback that acknowledges you're eating for emotional reasons, your brain will eventually understand the real issue and stop pushing you to seek more food. Instead of sending you to the kitchen, your brain will treat your craving as an emotional issue and trigger a desire to see a friend or a counselor to talk through the issue and find a resolution. The power of images. Intuition is a powerful trait that may be able to help you predict events before they happen. Chances are you have experienced a strong sense of intuition at some points. Perhaps you felt you needed to stay away from someone at a large gathering because that person seemed somehow dangerous. Human intuition can be more accurate than you might think. Recent studies suggest that a person's snap judgments can sometimes be more beneficial than taking the time to rationally think things over. Studies also have shown that people are better at recognizing faces when they're relying on intuition rather than being analytical. In one study, participants were asked to watch images of faces and identify if a particular face came up. In the first experiment, they were just shown a split second of the images, and then in a second, they were given more time to look at them. Unbelievably, people were better at recognizing the particular face when they were only given a brief glimpse of it. While human intuition provides a great service when recognizing a friendly face, it's also a trait that guides us in many decisions. From choosing a job to selecting a mate or place to live, intuition can be strong. In fact, that it can even predict events before they happen. One experiment involved participants being shown random photographs, many of which depicted violent images. Researchers monitored the reactions of participants as they viewed the photographs by measuring heart rate, blood pressure, and sweat produced. Each time a participant saw a violent image, as was expected, that person registered a stressful response with elevated heart rate and blood pressure. After some time, however, things in the study took a curious turn. Even though the photographs were displayed at random, participants' stress levels began to spike microseconds before a violent image was shown. Somehow, the participants' intuition began to predict the exact moment when a violent image was about to appear. If you ignore your intuition, you will lose the ability to feel out of situations, which leads to blind decisions. Money and fame. People think money and fame are what create happiness, but those typical goals are misguided. If you take just a moment to examine the faces of people riding a bus or subway train, you will quickly see that happiness for everyone is still an elusive goal. There is a simple reason for this. People have the wrong idea about what will make them happy. Most people equate happiness with money, fame, finding a mate, or having children. These people then come to find that achieving these goals does not automatically come with a feeling of happiness. Having children, for example, comes with a lot of stress. It does not automatically lead to a happier life. The same is true for professional success. When the top tennis players in the world were asked what motivated them, they said it wasn't the joy of playing or happiness when winning a match. They trained hard because they were afraid of losing, not exactly a positive feeling. So if you want to live a happy life, it's important to set the right goals. This means replacing unfulfilling goals with ones that align with personal values and that continue to provide long-term results. So instead of working for financial success, find a job that you love and that provides you with the opportunity to improve the lives of others. Mindfulness is the practice of being profoundly aware of what you're thinking and doing. When you play the violin, for example, you are not just drawing a bow across some strings. To play mindfully, you see yourself playing, breathing deeply, and are in touch with your thoughts and feelings as the music comes from not just the instrument, but also deep inside you. In everything you do, regularly ask yourself, how do I feel? To stay connected with your inner consciousness. If you believe you can do a thing, or if you believe you cannot, you're usually right. Henry Ford. There are two types of beliefs: empowering belief and limiting belief. Limiting beliefs prevents us to reach our goals, while empowering beliefs cause us to reach our goals. The first step to changing limiting beliefs is to forget about them. A limiting belief such as "I cannot do this" could be transformed into "yes, I can." Take a note and write down all your limiting beliefs and rewrite them, one at a time, into empowering beliefs. Whatever we believe shapes our reality, because we always act in accordance with our beliefs. Develop a belief system that supports you in getting what you want. Challenge beliefs that do not support you and replace them with empowering beliefs. Confidently expect good things to happen to you. After decades of scientific research, we now know that no one is born a genius. Instead, talented people work hard to develop the skills they make seem second nature, dedicating endless hours to practicing correctly. So how do you need to approach practicing to become a top performer? And what part does your brain play in this process? Well, let's get into it. With diligent practice, everyone can develop special skills from a young age. It is said that Austrian composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart could identify any musical notes, regardless on which instrument the note was played. But few people know how he was able to do this. Have you ever wondered how Mozart achieved such tremendous musical ability, or how some people memorized thousands of digits in pi, as if doing so was easy as knowing your phone number? We used to think such genius was the product of innate talent or a special spiritual gift. But in reality, anyone can acquire highly special skills. It just takes practice. Consider perfect pitch. The ability that Mozart had to identify any musical notes with that known tone for reference. This skill is rare. Only 1 in 10,000 people can do it. Perfect pitch is considered an example of an innate ability. Yet a recent study found that having perfect pitch is not innate at all. In 2014, Japanese psychologist Ayako Sakakibara set out to teach 24 children between the ages of 2 and 6 how to identify the 14 different chords on a piano. Several times a day, every day for months, she taught the children chords. As the children progressed, Sakakibara tested them on individual notes. At the end of the experiment, all the children could correctly identify notes when played. In other words, they had acquired perfect pitch. It stands to reason that with the right training, any person can learn perfect pitch too. This will require diligent instruction and practice, however, starting at the age of 6. The point is, under favorable conditions, perfect pitch is something that almost anyone can master. Humans can develop highly specific skills, regardless of the skill in question, be it music or otherwise, because of the way the brain responds to practicing. You will learn how in the next lesson. London's taxi drivers literally have bigger brains than you do, a product of diligent training. London is a vast, sprawling city with thousands of streets that intersect at the oddest of angles. With a population of more than 80 million, the city is also home to hundreds of restaurants, shopping malls, office buildings, and all sorts of establishments catering to its many inhabitants. And if you want to be a taxi driver in London, you have got to know your way around this maze. While some tasks like memorizing all of London's streets might seem impossible, humans can learn many difficult skills given the brain's ability to adapt. Just as your body grows stronger when you lift weights, your brain is plastic, meaning it changes when you train it. And neuroscientists at the University College London performed an experiment to test this idea in 2000. As part of her work, she compared the brains of London taxi drivers with those of non-drivers. She found that cab drivers had a larger posterior hippocampus, the part of the brain that helps you navigate space and memorize locations. Also, drivers who had been in the trade the longest had the largest hippocampi. To be sure, the data she gathered was scientifically relevant. That is, that cab drivers did not just start with large hippocampi, which helped them excel at the job. She scanned the brains of 2 groups of people. Her 2 groups were people about to start taxi driver training, and ordinary non-drivers as a control. At the start, she found no difference in hippocampi size between the 2 groups. 4 years later, however, when she performed the test again, She found that the hippocampi of the now trained taxi drivers were larger than those of her control subjects. This study implies a connection between navigation skills and the size of the brain's posterior hippocampus. When trained, this part of the brain can clearly grow, becoming capable of executing tasks it could not handle before deliberate training. So now we know that practice can change the human brain. But does practice affect thinking or the way we perceive situations? The images stored in long-term memory help people excel at a variety of complicated tasks. When you read about Steve Jobs, you probably think of the iPhone's inventor holding an iPhone with a smiling face. When this happens, your brain sees the picture. This is called a mental representation. Mental representations are structures that are stored in the brain that correlate to particular objects, images, movements, or anything that brain might have processed and stored for later retrieval. In a broad sense, mental representations allow you to sidestep your short-term memory, an ability that can be quite useful. Short-term memory is great for certain things, like remembering the words you just read to understand this sentence, but to memorize an entire language, you need the power and capacity of your long-term memory. Simply put, without the ability to store all the rules of a language in your long-term memory, you will not be able to communicate with the ease that you do. Here's where mental representations come into play. These well-organized patterns of information stored in long-term memory allow you to respond quickly to the situation in which you find yourself. For example, these representations remind you that Steve Jobs was a famous businessman, which is why you do not need to constantly relearn the significance of his invention every time you come across a reference to it. Mental representations also play a role as a performance booster. We know it takes years of practice to become an expert in a field, whether driving a taxi or playing chess. Only through practice can you develop detailed representations of the situations or movements that matter to your performance. Let's consider the sport of baseball. Plenty of fans have a handful of mental representations stored away, but they're nothing compared to those of professional baseball players. Because all of the practicing they do, professional players have developed sophisticated representations of all the potential trajectories of a baseball. This means that when a batter receives a pitch, he can predict within a split second how fast it will approach, whether it's a curveball or slider, and know exactly how to swing his bat. In this way, practice really does make perfect. But not any type of practice will do. Next, you will learn which type of practicing is required to develop special skills. Becoming a skilled performer means practicing purposefully, with set goals and constant feedback. Do you think that a professional musician, athlete, or scientist develop their skills and talents overnight? It's unlikely. Instead, they probably use purposeful practice to achieve success. This technique pushes you to build skills through several mechanisms, including setting clear, specific goals, being focused, leaving your comfort zone, and receiving constant feedback. How to achieve purposeful practice? A student at a university named Steve was asked to memorize an ever-expanding string of numbers, as the string was read out loud to him in 1-second intervals. Steve did not already have any particular facility with numbers or memorizing. In general, most people can memorize around 7 digits without much trouble, and initially Steve proved no difference. But with lots of training and practice, Steve could memorize chains of numbers that were 82 digits long. How did he achieve this? First, Steve had a clear and specific goal: to memorize more numbers than he could previously. Second, throughout the experiments, he remained focused. Steve also was pushed outside his comfort zone, as he was constantly encouraged to move past his current level of performance. If he managed to memorize 28 numbers in one session, for example, the trainer will start the new session by having him recite another string of the same lengths. Then immediately afterward, the trainer would ask Steve to memorize a string of 29 digits, a higher performance bar. And finally, Steve also received feedback on his performance, as the trainer would always inform him how he had done. This last mechanism is crucial. After all, how can you improve if there is no one to tell you how you are doing? Regardless whether you are practicing sonatas or German grammar, it is essential to know if you are learning it correctly. Through purposeful practice, you can learn all manner of special skills. But purposeful practice is just a step toward a greater goal, which you will learn about in the next lesson. Informed practice guided by expert knowledge separates performances from stellar ones. Now we know that purposeful practice is essential to becoming a great performer. But what sets apart great performers from people who seem to touch genius? They achieve this through deliberate practice, or purposeful practice that informs. For your practice to become deliberate, two things need to happen. First, the practice must be applied to a field that's well developed, meaning that there are already more experienced practitioners in the world whose level of performance clearly differs from those who are just starting out. Second, deliberate practice requires a teacher or a coach who can train a student using the practice activities necessary to improve. The musical tradition has developed over centuries, and obviously, there are differences in the quality of musical performances. Also, it is not uncommon to find piano teachers who are expert performers in their own rights. These musicians have developed sophisticated training techniques that help their students acquire the necessary skills to become experts themselves. In a sense, deliberate practice must not only be based on a field with established experts, but also involve guidance on how the students can become an expert. Thus, you can take advantage of the specific techniques that teachers have used to achieve excellence to find excellence in your practice. By adopting a teacher's knowledge, a student is given a template to follow, eliminating the need to start from scratch or waste time figuring out basic facts common to the field. For instance, let's say you want to become a star high jumper. With a great coach, you won't have to figure out things like the best place to start your jump or how to achieve maximum distance. But let's pause for a moment. If nearly any skill can be learned through intentionally guided practice, what does that say about the concept of talent? Contrary to public opinion, deliberate practice and not talent is the key to becoming extraordinary. Now you know that highly special skills can be developed through diligent practice, but are not some abilities the result of sheer genius or a sort of talent bestowed by higher power? Many people tend to think this is the case, believing that outstanding performers owe their skills to innate talents, especially in cases where landmark performances are inexplicably accomplished early in a performer's life. What other explanation could there be for such unusual, extraordinary abilities? Many of Mozart's biographers, for example, have pointed to the facts that he began composing at the age of 6, and that he wrote a symphony just 2 years later. Innate talent seems like a convenient catch-all to explain how a small child could accomplish so much in such a short time. Yet there is no evidence that innate talent exists. Rather, the incredible abilities of top performers, even a genius like Mozart, seems to be the result of deliberate practice. In fact, Mozart might not have accomplished that much when he was young. Evidence now suggests that the first compositions ascribed to him when he was 8 years old matched the handwriting of his father, Leopold Mozart, a composer who trained his son from a young age. While Mozart went on to become a legendary musical figure, he did not write any significant musical pieces until his teenage years, after nearly a decade of honing his skills through deliberate practice. The same holds for many other performers. Talented people do not take shortcuts. They have all practiced deliberately for years, building their brain's capacities by creating advanced mental representations. Innate talent just does not play much of a role in performance. Instead, the key to performing your best in whichever field you choose is to practice deliberately. By devoting yourself to a methodological training schedule, you can master almost any skill. If you want to improve your concentration, you have got to clear your mind and be in the now. Everyone wants to have excellent memory, right? But considering how many people find it hard to concentrate on details, remembering them just seems out of the question. Here are some top tips to improve your concentration. First, rid yourself of conflicts. That is, anything that leads your mind in different directions and stops you from concentrating. Do you spend time switching between checking your email and sending several messages on your phone? Well, that will make you like just about everyone else. But how do you get rid of internal conflict without doing something drastic like joining a monastery? A good starting point is to stop multitasking. According to neuroscience experts, multitasking actually slows you down by 50% and increases your chances of making a mistake by 50%. For example, chatting on the phone while driving will lead you to hit the brakes 0.5 seconds slower than normal. If you do the math, at the 112 kilometers per hour, your car will need an additional 15.5 meters to come to a complete stop. And a lot can happen in that space at that speed. Another smart move is to prevent your mind from wandering by giving yourself a purpose. That way you can easily remind yourself why you wanted to concentrate on something in the first place. In this case, the PIC rule might come in handy. Purpose gives you a reason for learning. Take learning a programming language. For example, your purpose there could be building a website for your family. Once you have found a purpose, ask yourself questions so you become interested and curious about what you have chosen to learn. Is this currently relevant to my life, or can I use this at work? Are great ones to start with. So now that you know how to improve your concentration, it's time to discover how to retain information too. Use your creativity to bring information to life in a fun way that will help you remember it. Have you ever read a page of a book and then immediately forgot what you just read? Well, that never has to be happen again. An easy way to remember a bit of information is to bring it to life. And this is all about using your creativity to make a memorable movie or picture. When it comes to words, there is a lot to play around with. They can often be broken down into smaller words which sound similar to others. That way, you can make them more memorable by making them sound funny or absurd. This is great when it comes to memorizing foreign words or capital cities. Say you are trying to learn polo, the Spanish word for chicken. Picture yourself playing polo while riding on a massive chicken, and you will never forget it again. Or let's take the capital of Australia, Canberra. If you are trying to remember it, visualize a kangaroo eating some berries to help jog your memory. It takes some practice to think in this way, but it makes the process of remembering things much easier. To make the pictures you have imagined super exciting and therefore more memorable, just use the C method. Information always enters our brains via our senses. So for example, when you're trying to remember the word horse, it's important to imagine its skin, smell and touch. That way you have created a multi-sensory image that's far easier to recall than 5 letters. Up next is exaggeration. Compared to an ordinary horse, you are more likely to remember a giant, bright pink horse wearing a tux, right? Forget logic, it's all about making funny, fantastical images. And lastly, energize. A horse galloping at full speed into the sunset is far more entertaining than one standing still in a stable. Adding a bit of action will make the information you are trying to retain a lot more vivid. The key to remembering information, then, is to use your imagination to bring it to life. Now that you have discovered how to create memorable images, it's important to learn how to organize them in your mind. The best way to do this is to use Loki method, also known as the root method, which is the practice of combining new information with something already familiar. Humans are experts at remembering specific routes or places. So must memory systems already make us of Loki. It works by putting the items to be remembered at specific locations along a route that is already vivid and familiar in our minds. Here's how you can put the Loki method to work. Say you are trying to memorize bits of a speech you have to give. You would imagine walking around your house along a particular route. The idea here is to create a string of locations to visit as you go. So in each room you imaginarily venture to pick 3 specific locations in the room and put them in a specific order. In this way, as you go around your house, you combine each part of the speech with the locations you have picked. Let's say you start in the kitchen and the first loci is your favorite pink breakfast bowl. You will think of the horse in a pink tuxedo from the C method in the previous lesson and remember that the word horse is in the first paragraph of the speech. To make it even more memorable, you could imagine spinning the pink breakfast bowl on its head. Next, let's say the following paragraph in your speech includes the words summer camp, which you remember by imagining your family pictures on a refrigerator. This method is effective because it will work with any structured location that you know well. Whether it is your car, your body, or a museum, you can use your route to record your list. If your route is intentionally structured to hold, say 5 objects per room, then you will remember both the list and its exact order. The Loki method has been around more than 2,500 years. It's always remarkable when a person can easily recall complex mathematical facts or historical dates at the drop of a hat. If you want to be able to do the same, here is a simple way to remember numbers that only requires 3 steps. The idea is to transform numbers into images that will stick in your mind. First, you will need to learn a system that changes numbers into letters or alters how those letters sound. Take the number 0, which can be represented by the letters S, Z, and C. Though to remember, think about a hissing wheel. After all, 0 looks like a wheel anyway. Each number from 0 to 9 can be assigned a group of similar sounding consonants. For instance, the number 6 can be represented by the sounds J, Sh, Ch, or a soft G. You can also use the shape of the numbers when you assign these sounds to make them easier to remember. For instance, if you flip the numbers 2 and 3 on the sides, they look like the letters N and M, respectively, and if you flip the number 9 horizontally or vertically, it looks like a P or a B. Vowels are left out for now, but come into use later. The next step in remembering a date or number is to write down the letters that represent them and make up a word. Say you want to remember the year 1969, when humans first walked on the moon. Most memorable dates happened in the last millennia, so you only need to remember the 969 bits. Therefore, the sounds B, Sh, and P should come to mind. Together they can be used to make the word bishop. The last stage is to make a picture for you to remember. Using the C principle, take the word you have created and your chosen date or number. For the above, a bishop dancing on the moon with Neil Armstrong should do the trick. Now that you know how this system can transform numbers into words, it should be simple to create memorable images that you can use to recall particular numbers or dates. Stop yourself from forgetting information by reviewing it. Without reviewing new learned information, your memory will forget most of what you have learned. To put it simply, without the reviewing process, you cannot stick new learned information in your memory. But what's the most effective way to do this? The German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus was one of the first to study forgetting processes and to plot a curve that reveals the relationship between forgetting and time. Based on this and related findings, a learning technique called spaced repetition was developed in which increasing intervals of time are used between subsequent reviews. This maximizes the time spent studying difficult material and minimizes the time spent reviewing things you already know. According to many renowned scientists, this technique has proved to be highly reliable for memorizing facts. A practical application of this technique has been developed by Sebastian Leitner, a German scientist who wrote a book on learning and memory, popularizing a new method of studying flashcards. In his study system, flashcards are sorted into boxes according to how well they are known. If cards' content cannot be recalled, the flashcard is promoted to a higher box. Because box sizes increase ascendingly, and a card in a higher box is only retested when the box is filled, increasing time lags in between learning repetitions are created. If at any time card content cannot be recalled, the flashcard is demoted to box 1 again. This flashcard system can help improve time and memory management. TinyCards and Anki are software programs for learning based upon scientifically derived techniques, upon the work of Ebbinghaus and Leitner, as well as others. We will talk about these programs in the next lesson. Therefore, to really make sure your brain never forgets what you have learned, you should gradually leave more time between one review and the next. Another point to remember is that when you're going through the process of reviewing, take advantage of the memory techniques you have learned. The C principle should have provided you with clear, vivid images to bring your information to life. Has the bishop still got moves on the moon? Make sure to use the tools you have got, otherwise you will lose what you're trying to retain. It's always a good idea to stay focused on your main goal too. If you're learning a foreign language, booking a trip to that country could be the motivation you need to study extra hard. When it comes to memorizing what you have already learned, the key is reviewing what you have done to prevent yourself from losing your newfound knowledge. To make information memorable, you need to bring it to life. And the best way to do this is to connect what you learn with what you already know. Use your imagination to form memorable images and engage your senses. Finally, by reviewing what you have stored in your mind, you will make sure it's never forgotten. Mnemonics are simple methods that ensure excellent memory. The word mnemonics is derived from the name of Greek memory goddess, Mnemosyne. One way you can significantly improve your memory is by using memory techniques, often referred to as mnemonics. So what's the idea behind this weird word? Mnemonics refer to any technique designed to help you remember things. Mnemonics can be very useful and effective tools to recall all kinds of information, including lists and sequences of events. When the average person takes a memory test, they usually score somewhere between 20 and 60%. Trained memorizers, in contrast, achieve between 95 to 100% accuracy. Impressive. These results scale as well. In fact, experiments have shown that once you learn mnemonics and are able to remember something, say 9 out of 10 items, there is a high likelihood that you will also be able to remember 90 out of 100, 900 out of 1000, and so on. So what makes mnemonics so powerful? The secret lies in the fact that this technique activates both the left and the right cortex of the brain, thus unlocking your memory's full potential. Whereas your left brain helps you remember things through logic, words, sequencing, numbering, and lists, your right brain operates through creative associations. These associations can be created using rhythm, color, dimensions, daydreaming, spatial awareness, and gestalt, the whole picture. By stimulating both sides of the brain when trying to store information in your memory banks, you will not only improve your ability to recall information, you will boost your creative potential as well. For example, if you learn how to play an instrument while also spending lots of time studying math, both your musical and math skills will improve more than if you were only learning one thing at a time. Similarly, you can become a better dancer if you learn a foreign language at the same time. By this point, you are probably ready to start your mnemonics training to improve your memory. Learning mnemonics is really easy. In fact, you are probably familiar with some of these techniques already. Mnemonics comprise a wide range of exercises, but we are only going to focus on the 4 essential attributes for any mnemonic exercise. These attributes are key, as they engage both our literal brain and visual brain. The first is synesthesia, or the blending of the senses. In developing better memory, it's important to sensitize and regularly train all your senses, including vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and kinesthesia, your awareness of position and movement in space. So, for example, if you want to be sure you pick up some toothpaste after work, you could engage a variety of senses by vividly imagining yourself squeezing the toothpaste onto the brush, feeling your fingers touch the brush, and imagining the tastes, smells, and sounds of brushing your teeth. Movement adds another means for your brain to link information. Staying with our toothpaste example, when you imagine the toothpaste, then make the images three-dimensional. Really try to imagine the rhythmic sensation of the toothbrush against your gums. Next up are positive images. The brain naturally wants to recall pleasant memories, so do your best to attach positive or inspiring associations to the things you want to remember. In the toothpaste example, you might vividly imagine yourself in front of a mirror, admiring your beautiful, pearly white teeth. The final attribute is exaggeration. Interestingly, our brains store exaggerated stories, images and so on with a high success rate. If you imagine that your train home is a massive tube of toothpaste, then you won't need to work hard to remember. If you use these mnemonics, you can remember anything you will ever need to, and you won't need any more reminders from your dentist either. The link system will help you remember short lists of items. Imagine how nice it would be to never worry about forgetting your shopping list again. With the link system, this could become your reality. The link system creates associations in the mind that link individual items in a list in such a way that what makes them easier to recall. As you learned in the previous lesson, the best way to remember things is to fill your memory with vivid details. Thus, it is important to make these links as exciting as possible. The transitions between the items on the list should also activate all your senses, and the more unexpected and abstract the links, the better you will remember them. As an example, say you need to remember to get scissors, roses, washing powder, apples, olive shampoo, bread, a coffee maker, eggs, napkins, and dental floss from the store. Imagine it's a cold day. So cold that the steel scissors in your hand have frozen stuck against your skin. When you rip them away, your palm is a vibrant red, the color of the roses you want to buy from Mrs. Tulip. When you enter her flower shop, the fresh smell reminds you of getting the washing powder. Imagine the vivid contrast between reds and whites of the last two items. So you head to the pharmacy, and on your way you see an organic shop with a beautiful display of apples. You pop in and grab 2 kilos. At the store, they also have very ripe olives. Imagine them as clips in your hair, completing the association with shampoo. On your way home, you pass a coffee shop that smells of freshly roasted beans. So you stop in to get a new coffee maker since your old one is broken. You think of how wonderful it will be to eat freshly baked bread with poached eggs tomorrow morning, along with a freshly brewed cup of joe. You can see your breakfast served on a black plate with a bright red napkin next to it. It was delicious. Now it's time to floss your teeth. PEG memory systems are useful for short sequences. Remembering items on a list is useful, but what do you do if you have to remember something in a particular sequence? In this case, PEG memory systems are the key. PEG memory systems use key memory words as a basis for remembering. A PEG is a fixed key memory word, which is used to link items. Imagine the PEG system as a wardrobe with a fixed number of hangers. Clothes come in and out, but the hangers stay the same. Two good examples of PEG memory systems are the number shape system and the number rhyme system. In the number shape system, you use the shapes of numbers as pegs. Think of the numbers 1 through 10. What does each number look like to you? For example, number 1 might be a pencil, 2 kind of looks like a swan, and 3 might resemble a heart. Be playful and authentic in developing your own set of number shapes. Once you have 10 shapes, you can use them as references for a sequence. For example, imagine that you need to remember a recipe sequence, the first 3 steps of which are: mix a spoonful of milk with 4 eggs, and add a cup of vanilla. Think about the images you invented for numbers 1 through 3, and then link them with these items. For example, you might imagine the milk pouring down the handle of a spoon, shaped like a pencil. Then recall a swan sitting on 4 very yellow eggs. The swan's wing boasts a tattoo of a red heart, sprinkled with vanilla. The number rhyme system is similar to the number shape system, except you develop your own rhymes based on the numbers to act as pegs. 1, for example, could be sun. 2 sounds like Lou, and so on. By combining both systems, you can store lists of 20 items in your short-term memory in any order. But what if you want to remember an indefinite number of objects? The Roman room system allows you to remember an indefinite number of items. Imagine creating a room where you could store countless memories. Well, that's exactly what the Roman room system allows you to do. By filling your imaginary room with objects, you create pegs to which you can attach new information. The number of fixed objects you create is up to you. Just remember that the more objects you have, the longer the sequences you will be able to remember. And while the sequence of objects does not matter, it needs to be deliberate and precise. It is this precision that allows new objects to be linked to fixed ones. To practice, let's sketch a few items in your imaginary room. These will be your fixed items. There is a blue doormat in front of the door with a drawing of a white cat on it. In the middle of the door, there is a red doorknob shaped like a dragon. Once you enter the room, you find an oak coat hanger with 8 pegs on your right hand side. So if you need to remember to get a vaccine from the pharmacy, pick up your sister from the airport, and get your shirts from the cleaners, you could imagine something like this. The white cat on the doormat is being injected with the vaccine. You see the red dragon spread its wings and welcome your sister into the house. Inside the house, you see your freshly pressed shirts hanging from the coat hanger by the door. It's easy, right? Once you have furnished your room, take multiple mind walks in order to cement the pegs in your memory. Activate all your senses during these walks. Be mindful of the colors, smells, and noises you hear. Listen for subtleties, like a ticking clock, and really feel the sensations of the furniture. If you want to make sure you remember the pegs in your room, make a drawing of it. Some people enjoy creating these rooms so much that they have made drawings with hundreds of items. Whenever you want to boost your odds of remembering an event, Take a mental snapshot of it. For instance, let's assume you are in Cappadocia and you want to remember this wonderful place forever. In such a case, what you will do is focus intently on this place and take a mental photograph of the scene. Look at the scene in front of you with utmost concentration and hold your head steady. It's important for you to remember these details exactly, so tell yourself this firmly. Observe the colors around you, the colors and position of things, the hot air balloons and the weather. Now it's time to capture the image. Blink slowly your eyes, at almost half the speed you actually blink at. As your eyes close, think of them as a shutter to a camera, and imagine hearing its sound as your eyes shut. If you are done, review the scene and replay it in your mind's eye. If the images are unclear, take another mental snapshot with greater intensity. Don't give up. Once you get it right, you will find it hard to forget.